Hello everyone, we are from group 2. We are going to talk about the science fiction. So, let's get right into the materials. Definition of science fiction. Science fiction is the literature of ideas and philosophy. Science fiction is a genre of speculative fiction that contains imagined elements that don't exist in the real world. Science fiction is multi- and interdisciplinary, concerned not only with literary qualities but also exploring core values of diverse fields. What is science fiction? The form of fiction that deals principally with the effect of actual or imagined science upon society or individuals is called science fiction, or in shortened from sci-fi or SF. Mary Shelley is known as the teenage girl who invented science fiction. Mary Shelley wrote what we now recognize as the first science fiction novel, Frankenstein, in January 1st, 1818. But the term was also popularized by Hugo Gernsback. He was the first to identify science fiction as its own distinct genre in 1920s. The Hugo Awards, given annually since 1953 by the World Science Fiction Society, are named after him. These achievement awards are given to the top science fiction writers, editors, illustrators, films, and fanzines. The 19th and early 20th centuries. In 1818, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley published Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus that we've been talking before. Champions of Shelley as the mother of science fiction emphasized her innovative fictional scheme. Jules Verne, who counted Poe among his influences and was arguably the inventor of science fiction. Verne's first novel, Paris in the 20th Century, written in 1863 but not published until 1994, is set in the distant 1960s and contains some of his most accurate prognostications, such as elevated trains, automobiles, facsimile machines, and computer-like banking machines. Voyage Extraordinaries, 1863, 5 Weeks in a Balloon. It's also his work. Verne's novels achieved remarkable international success, and he became a legend in his own time. His major works, which were adapted for film many times, remained popular into the 21st century, and the scientific romance became a permanent fixture of Western popular entertainment. There are also Robert Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and H.G. Wells has phenomenal trio works. There are The Time Machine, The Invisible Man, and The War of the Worlds. Edgar Rice Burroughs with his serialized story, Under the Moons of Mars, novelized as a Princess of Mars and adapted for film as a John Carter, transformed European-style literary science fiction into a distinctly American genre directed at a juvenile audience. Science fiction after World War II. There are Ray Bradbury, his famous work is Fahrenheit 451 and Dandelion Wine. Philip K. Dick, his works are Solar Lottery, The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, Do Android Dreams of Electric Sheep? Also William Gibson, he was the leader of the genre cyberpunk movement. His works are Neuromancer, Count Zero, Idle. And last but not least is Kurt Vonnegut. His works are Player Piano, Mother Night, Cat's Cradle. Next, we are going to discuss about classic British science fiction. So, Let's move to the first point. Great Britain, as well as France, experienced a flowering of creative imagination in the 1880s and 90s. Literary landmarks of the period included such innovative work as The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, and also phenomenal trio of The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. These works use the worldview presented by science to rip aggressively at the fabric of Victorian reality. As the 20th century dawned, many of science fiction's most common themes, space travel, time travel, utopias and dystopias, and encounters with alien beings, bore British postmarks. There are two types of science fiction. The first one that we are going to talk is about hard science fiction. Hard science fiction is based on speculation regarding current trends in the hard sciences, such as physics, chemistry, biology, or technology, and how they will affect the future. The example, stories about humans colonizing other planets began as speculation on where the space programs of 20th century might lead. Genetic engineering, computer technology, and robotics are other new technologies that inspired many science fiction stories. The second one is soft science fiction. Soft science fiction is based on speculation regarding the soft or social sciences, such as psychology, sociology, political science, anthropology, and etc. In these stories, the emphasis is more on how human culture might evolve in the future. Oh, but many science fiction stories include both hard and soft elements, since technology and society generally evolve together and affect each other. New technologies can change society. Cultural and political development can affect research priorities and determine how technologies are developed. So, don't be confused if you find works that combine these two types of science fiction. It is normal. Next, we are going to talk about major theme of science fiction. Science fiction has so many themes in them, but we are just going to talk about the major theme. So, let's get right into the first one. Utopia and dystopia. I will talk about the utopia first. The concept of a utopia or ideal state or good place is linked to religious ideas of heaven or the promised land and to folkloristic ideas like the Isles of the Blessed. But it is essentially a future historical goal to be achieved by the active efforts of human beings, not a transcendental goal reserved as a reward for those who follow a particularly virtuous path in life. The next one is dystopia. The word dystopia is the commonly used antonym of utopias and denotes that class of hypothetical societies containing images of worlds worse than our own. Dystopian images are almost invariably images of future society, pointing fearfully at the way the world is supposedly going in order to provide urgent propaganda for a change in direction. Utopian fiction is set in a perfect world, an improved version of real life. Meanwhile, dystopian fiction does the opposite. A dystopian novel drops its main character into a world where everything seems to have gone wrong at a macro level. Much like utopian novels, dystopian novels can take place in the distant future, the past, or an alternate present. Some may feature altered versions of real-world cities like New York and London. Others may be set in fully fictional locales. A Modern Utopia by H.G. Wells is one of the examples of utopia's work. And When the Sleeper Wakes by H.G. Wells is one of the examples of dystopia's work. The characteristics of utopia: peace, unity, equality, happiness, individuality, and free of crime, violence, and war. Meanwhile, the characteristics of dystopia are limitation of information, independent thoughts, freedom, liberty, concept being worshipped by citizens, constant surveillance, fear of outside world, dehumanized state, uniform expectations, and illusion of perfect and utopian world. These are the examples of utopia and dystopia work. Island by Aldous Huxley is a utopian novel. It tells about a cynical journalist who is shipwrecked on the fictional island of Pala. Meanwhile, Uglies by Scott Westerveld is a dystopian novel that tells about a world which everyone is considered an ugly, but then turn pretty by extreme cosmetic surgery when they reach the age of 16. The next major themes are cyberpunk and steampunk. Cyberpunk is a futuristic world portrayed as the one in which the society is largely controlled by computer technology. It revolves around technological innovation that springs from modern age of the internet. Cyberpunk clothing is all about urban street fashion with a gritty look and futuristic makeover. It is highlighted by the new wave science fiction movement of the 1960s and 1970s. The example of cyberpunk works are Blade Runner, The Matrix, The Terminator, Ghost in the Shell, Total Recall, Tron Legacy, etc. Meanwhile, steampunk is a subgenre based on open technological innovation from an alternative world inspired by Victorian-era technology. It is a fusion of technology and aesthetics inspired by 19th century steam-powered machinery. It is purely based on Victorian-style aesthetics with clothing from the era. It draws its inspiration from 19th century romance of H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, and Mary Shelley. The examples of steampunk's work are The Time Machines, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Wild Wild West, Hugo, Sherlock Holmes, and etc. These are the examples of cyberpunk and steampunk work. Neuromancer is a cyberpunk novel about a group of mercenary criminals who secretly work for an artificial intelligence that is trying to break free. Meanwhile, on the other side, Boneshaker is a science fiction novel by American writer Terry Prose, combining the steampunk genre with zombies in an alternate history version of Seattle. Alternative societies. The dominant norm of which is an exchange or alternative social order. The paradigm for this fiction involves the visit to a utopic or dystopic society, during which the visitor, or in some cases the reader, is invited to compare the society with his or her own. Alternate society science fiction poses a wide assortment of questions, including the following. What constitutes a good or bad society? What is the proper relation between the individual and the community? To what extent are freedom and order mutually antagonistic? What are the main determinants of social reality? What is the function of particular social institution? And what is the relation between language and social order? These fictions, many of which figure as science fiction classics, mediate the proper relation between self and society, in general eliciting a normative reading, the establishment of a framework of value. Alternate societies often refers to calls upon or plays with a spectrum of language norms, from neologistic forms to alien tongues to invented languages. These are some examples of alternative societies work. The first one is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, 1984 by George Orwell, The Maze Runner by James Dashner, and then The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay by Susan Collins. The Hunger Games by Susan Collins is a alternate societies book that tells about a televised competition in which two teenagers from each of 12 districts of Vietnam are chosen at random to fight to the death. Alien Encounters. Alien Encounters or First Contact is about the first meeting between humans and extraterrestrial life, or of any sentient race's first encounter with another one, given they are from different planets. This could be an alien arriving in Earth or a human, or we can say astronaut, reaching another planet or actually living on that another planet. Since human beings are the only known from a fully sentient life, any encounter with non-human intelligence is necessarily speculative. Writers in the 17th and 18th centuries produced many tales of travel to and from other inhabited worlds, but works such as Voltaire, Micromegas didn't depict Saturnians as alien beings. They were men, though of Saturn-sized proportion. These are some examples of alien encounters work. There are The Listeners by James Gunn, Remnant Population by Elizabeth Moon, Binti the Complete Trilogy by Nnedi Okorafor, Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang, Lilith's Brood by Octavia Butler, and Gateway by Frederick Frohl. Lilith's Brood by Octavia Butler is an alien encounters novel. It tells about Lilith Iapo that saw the most of the earth has been destroyed by nuclear war, and the surviving humans have been kept in suspended animation by an alien race called the Oankali. The next one is Sex and Gender. The subject also interested some male authors. There are Theodore Sturgeon's and Venus Flesh X examine the limits of gender in a world where sexuality and reproduction are surgical add-ons. Next, one of the more thoughtful explorations of the theme was Ursula K. Le Guin's The Left Hand of Darkness, which posited a human society on a distant planet where humans have no sexual identity but become sexual beings for a brief period once a month. Each can become either a male or female during this time. Le Guin works out the consequence of this sort of arrangement in meticulous anthropological detail and creates a revelatory tour de force. These are the examples of sex and gender work. There are Dawn and Imago by Octavia E. Butler, The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin, The Mirror Empire by Cameron Hurley, and then the last but not least is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. The next major theme is space opera. Space opera takes place aboard spaceships and on alien planets, set in the far future against the background of some sort of intergalactic empire. There may be a background based on hard, scientific extrapolation, or it may be a form of fantasy given intergalactic settings. Space opera can be contrasted with hard science fiction, in which the emphasis is on the effect of technological progress and inventions, and where the settings are carefully worked out to obey the laws of physics, cosmology, mathematics, and biology. The term space opera was coined in 1941 by fan writer and author Wilson Tucker as a pejorative term in an article in issue 36 of Le Zombie, a science fiction fanzine. Tucker defines space opera as the science fiction equivalent, a hacky, grinding, stinking, outworn spaceship yarn. And then these are the space opera's work. There are The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, Revelation Space by Alastair Reynolds, and then Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, Space Opera by Catherine M. Valente, and then Leviathan Wakes by James S. A. Corey, and then the last but not least is Dawn by Frank Herbert. Space Opera by Catherine Valente is a novel about the human that must participate in the Metagalactic Grand Prix, an interspecies music contest. The next one is time travel. A complement to travel through space is travel through time. A prototype of the time travel story is Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. The story features the ghost of Christmas yet to come, who is magically able to immerse the helpless Scrooge in the dire consequence of his own ungenerous action. But for all their familiarity, Scrooge's time travels were mere ghostly dream-mongering. The science fiction version of time travel arrived when H.G. Wells suggested in The Time Machine that the process might be done mechanically. For a genre whose central issues involve processes of historical change, time travel is irresistibly attractive. For instance, time travel offers the edifying spectacle of moderns traveling into the past to remake the world closer to the heart desire. These are the examples of time travel works. There are The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Nivenegger, and then 11/22/63 by Stephen King, Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut, The Time Machine by Herbert Kurzweil, and then The First 15 Leaves of Harry August by Catherine Webb, and then the last but not least is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L. Engel. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells is generally credited with the popularization of the concept of time travel by using a vehicle or device to travel purposely and selectively forward or backward through time. Alternate history and parallel universe is a branch of non-realistic literature that concerns itself with history turning out differently than we know to be the case. It asks questions about time, linearity, determinism, and the implicit link between past and present. It considers the individual's role in making history, and it foregrounds the constructedness and narrativity of history. Alternate history or alternative history is a genre of speculative fiction consisting of stories in which one or more historical events occur differently. These stories usually contain what-if scenarios at crucial points in history and present outcomes other than those in the historical records. The stories are conjectural but are sometimes based on fact. A parallel universe, also known as a parallel dimension, alternate universe, or alternate reality, is a hypothetical self-contained plane of existence, coexisting with one's own. The sum of all potential parallel universes that constitute reality is often called a multiverse. The term parallel universe is more general, without implying a relationship or lack of relationship with our own universe. A universe where the very laws of nature are different. For example, one in which there are no laws of motion, would in general count as a parallel universe but not an alternative reality and a concept between both fantasy world and Earth. These are the examples of the alternate history and parallel universe work. The alternate history works there are The Years of Rice and Salt by Kim Stanley Robinson, and then Fatherland by Robert Harris, and then The Guns of the South by Harry Turtledove. And then the parallel universe work are The Blazing World by Lady Margaret Lucas Candevis, and then Parallel Worlds by Michio Kaku, and then Hyperspace by Michio Kaku also. The Years of Rice and Salt by Kim Stanley Robinson is an alternate history novel. The novel explores how world history might have been different if the Black Death Plague had killed 99% of Europe's population instead of a third. Meanwhile, The Hyperspace by Michio Kaku is a parallel universe book. It focuses on Kaku's studies of higher dimension referred to as hyperspace. The importance of science fiction. The first one is additional benefit of being open to alternative interpretation. SF can stand for speculative fiction, science fantasy, space fiction, or speculative fantasy. SF is about a literature of ideas, of wonder and speculation. Speculative fiction has been proposed as a more appropriate term than science fiction because SF writers frequently speculate about the future. They ask, what will happen if this goes on? Science fiction is a rather specialized field, requiring a lot of work and commitment to do well, and monetary rewards don't always follow. Some writers use science fiction to create thought experiments, testing out in fiction things which can be explored in real life. Science fiction is often about change. It explores the impact of progress on individuals and on societies. There is no single, magical source of ideas, except your own mind. The development of idea from notion to story is really what it's all about. Oh, it's over. I think that's all about the science fiction. Hope you guys understand about that. Thank you and bye bye.